What am I doing right now? I'm playing Grandia. This is the port from the Sega Saturn to the PlayStation 4. I've been enjoying this game. It's a fun adventure JRPG. And I, am just grateful that I have the privilege of being able to play a game that would otherwise be lost to time. But no, what am I really doing here? I am making intentionally low-effort content so that I can deliver content as quick as possible to you, so you can watch me play this game with pre-recorded footage while I give you commentary on top of that on Final Cut Pro. It's a very easy and very quick way to produce content as fast as possible. Additionally, this formula allows me to get rid of the ands and the ums and the ahs and the stuttering. Like even just now, I actually stopped the previous take that I was doing just to be able to redo this take and to continue forward. And the most beneficial part of all of this, I am satisfying the YouTube algorithm by allowing for a long period of time on these videos to allow for audience retention. It's no secret that YouTube rewards many videos that are within the 10 to 20 minute frame, that it rewards whenever you regularly and consistently upload. And so therefore, the kind of content that you're going to want to be producing, especially if you're going to want to be successful on YouTube, is definitely going to have to be the kind of content where you can make it quickly and to where the quality of that content is consistent across the platform. Now, my channel is small, so I am the last person to really be giving advice on how to be successful on YouTube. These are things that I've heard from other people who have either had some level of success on YouTube or have some kind of formula that they follow in order to be successful on YouTube. And of course, the advice that I'm giving in and of itself is not a surefire guarantee as to whether or not that is how you're going to be successful on YouTube. So I am, by my own admission here, not an authority on how to be successful on YouTube, both by my own personal output as a content creator, as well as my standing as to how many subscribers I have, what are my view counts like, everything like that. But what I can say for certain is that the majority of the time, I do at least put some level of effort into my videos. And I do this regardless as to whether or not I think I'm going to be successful on YouTube.com. When I do make videos, I make videos that I think would be interesting to watch. I make videos that I would want to watch myself. And sometimes, yeah, I do watch my own videos because they are fun. I do like to laugh at my own jokes, my own edits, laugh at my own commentary. It would be fair if you commented on this video and said that I was narcissistic or egotistical or some level of self-indulgent. But I also think conversely, there are a plethora of people out there whom I've heard of before that absolutely hate their content. There are people out there who hate listening to their own voice. There are people out there who, when they finish making a video, never engage with that video ever again, because they would resent the very idea of being even remotely engaged with their previous content. And so while I think it would be fair to say that I'm egotistical or sniffing my own farts in a way by engaging with my own content in the way that I have described that I do, I think it would be even worse if I made content and then hated my content. And I can't say that I hate my content here on my YouTube channel. I love it. I love the videos that I make, and I'm very proud of them. And, to be fair, there are times where I go back to some of the older videos and I look at them and I'm just thinking to myself, damn, that video is horrible. I wish they used a better microphone. Like the Knuckles video that I made all those years ago. I wish that I used a better microphone for that video, but at the time I just didn't really have a microphone other than what was on my computer, and I just made do with the best that I had. And of course, even with this video, the air conditioner is on, but it's in the middle of July in the United States. So you can kind of forgive me at least a little bit for doing that. And of course, noise gate doesn't necessarily make that better, so on and so forth. But anyway, why am I talking about all of this? I spent the first 5 minutes of this video talking about my content creation and my habits as a content creator and my mentality as a content creator. So why did I spend 5 minutes talking about all of this? Well, it's because I do not like SlopTubers. Now, SlopTubers are a diverse pool of different content creators that make a diverse pool of different genres of content. SlopTube is an umbrella term here to describe the mentality of quantity over quality when it comes to the approach of content creation. Usually with these channels, regardless of the topic that they're engaging with, they will usually spend minimal amount of effort, minimal amount of time on all of the topics that they are engaging with. And I would argue that the type of content that they dish out tends to reflect the quality as to their approach overall. Quantity over quality, as I said earlier, it is algorithmically rewarding for content creators to dish out as much content as possible in a short amount of time, because you're getting as much audience retention as possible. It is the quickest way for you to maintain an audience. You're obviously going to maintain the interest of your audience, and of course, it doesn't matter as to what kind of content you make or how good your content is. The overall goal is not good content. The overall goal is a lot of content. So there are multiple ways we can look at this, right? Like, we can say the YouTube channel Game Grumps are SlopTubers because they have just their gameplay that they have to work with maybe occasional minimal effort on edits, like an occasional soundbite or an occasional subtitle that they want to insert into it. And then of course they've got their intro for every single part of all of their gaming video episodes. And of course they produce multiple episodes in a single sitting. So it's like the perfect formula, because you can dish out so much content in such a little amount of time, and you don't even necessarily have to upload it all immediately. You can just sit down for one afternoon and finish a video game, and then have all of the parts spread out throughout the whole year. So you schedule all the episodes for a whole ass year. And, you know, it's really interesting to think about it like that, because that is actually quite genius. Because if you think about the low effort level of content creation that is involved in something like Game Grumps, it is vastly different than, say, something like the YouTuber Some Call Me Johnny, who has to painstakingly write a script, and then to film, and to record, and then to edit, and then to polish it, to master it, to make sure the audio levels are just right, to construct a thumbnail, and then to upload it, and make sure that it has all the SEOs in it. So, obviously, there's a lot more that goes into, like, a video game review. Now, I call Game Grumps SlopTube, but only on a technicality, because it does fall under the category of quantity over quality. Because sometimes you get an Armenian racial slur being said in a Sonic Adventure playthrough, and it's not freaking great, to say at the very least. But when I say SlopTube, I'm more referring to commentary, or when somebody has, like, a topic that they very specifically want to talk about, like drama on YouTube, or music, or politics, social commentary, if you will. And I would qualify this very video that you're watching as SlopTube, because I am making this, again, with such little effort. Such little effort, in fact, that I want to ask you to place a bet as to whether or not I'm going to be able to defeat the boss in this playthrough here. You think I'm going to beat the boss? Comment below if you think I'm going to beat the boss, and whether or not you got it right or wrong, feel free to edit your comment to let me know if your guess was right or wrong. And see, That right there, I hooked you. I trapped you into my little hands. Because now, you're gonna be wanting to finish the video to see what happens to our little adventurers on this abandoned ghost pirate ship. And all I had to do was just hook you and get you to just continue watching this very honestly meaningless video. Now, why do I not like SlopTubers? Is it because of the quantity over quality aspect of it? No, not necessarily. I don't think that a good video is defined by the number of hours of blood, sweat, and tears and painstaking research that goes into it. Although that can greatly benefit it, and of course it can greatly define as to whether or not it is a good video. But as we've gone over before, the amount of effort that you put in a single video does not guarantee whether it'll be a successful video. There are plenty of videos that have a high level of effort that tend to not get rewarded in that way. And then of course, the opposite is true, where people make the shittiest content you've ever seen, but they're also the most successful people on the platform. And I find that personally to be a bit offensive, because there are times where I make videos, right? And I'll put like hours upon hours into it. And then, conversely, there will also be times where I make a video like this, where I barely put effort into it, and it will pop off. And that just stings. Yeah, there will just be times where I make a video and it will do well, and I'll think to myself, that video did not deserve to do well, like at all. I mean, maybe it resonated with people, but it's one of those things where if it did well, it did not deserve to do well. And that's based on my own content. I'm not even really saying that reflective of like anybody else. But hey, that's also kind of like the gamble here, right? Is that with this video right here that you're watching, who knows if this is gonna do well? It might flop, but conversely, it might actually do well. And I can't truly know that, because I know the capacity of the effort that I'm putting here, and I'm pretty transparent about it, but that's still not going to guarantee in and of itself as to whether or not this video is going to do well. But I do think that with the concept of SlopTube and the idea of producing content as quick as possible, there is a lot of possibility for irresponsible content creation and an irresponsible use of one's platform. So I'll give an example, and I'm not going to name names. The person who I am naming does watch my videos, and if you are that person who is watching my video, just for the record, I'm not starting drama with you. I'm not interested in starting drama with you, but I do hope that you take what I have to say to heart, and that maybe you perhaps use this advice to reflect on your approach to content creation. So anyway, there's this one YouTuber who I saw produce a video that was a criticism of Hassan Piker. Now, I do, full transparency, watch Hassan Piker, but I am not an avid defender of Hassan Piker. In fact, there are plenty of times where I think Hassan Piker is way off the mark. I think Hassan Piker is far too optimistic in the U.S. Democratic Party, especially when the U.S. Democratic Party does not deserve any of the optimism that he displays, especially when he acknowledges that he's wrong on all of these optimistic takes of his with the Democratic Party. There's also times where he has had terrible takes about people with disabilities or people who are struggling with mental illness. These are times where I really don't like Hassan Piker. And I would never, under any circumstances, unconditionally defend him just because I have some, like, content creator worship of the guy. So, yeah, I watch Hassan Piker sometimes. And, of course, I watch other people whom I sometimes also disagree with on a regular basis. But here's the thing, right? This person was criticizing Hassan Piker for something not even relevant to what I'm about to talk about. The main topic is not relevant to this part. This was a one-off side comment that this person made, where he accused Hassan Piker of platforming a terrorist. Now, at first I was a little confused, like, wait a minute, what? Hassan Piker platformed a whole terrorist, like Al-Qaeda or ISIS or something like that? But then it took me just a few minutes to Google the situation, and I realized that the person that this guy was talking about, the supposed terrorist in question, was a Yemeni teenager. Now, Yemen is a country that's been bombed into oblivion by the United States. I remember explicitly hearing horror stories about Barack Obama bombing Yemen into oblivion. And I remember also hearing about how Obama was, at that time of, when he was president, the most bomb-heavy president in U.S. history. Pretty sure Biden and Trump has dwarfed those numbers, but take that claim with a grain of salt. So I went on to research this a little further, and Hassan Piker made a tweet promoting this interview that he did with this Yemeni teenager, and he went on to, verify that this teenager was never part of the Houthis or any kind of militia group or militant revolutionary group of any kind. He's just a teenager that happens to live in Yemen. Sure, he engaged in a little bit of piracy here and there, but also, if you haven't been paying attention, Yemen's kind of one of those countries that have been bombed into oblivion by the United States. In those circumstances, you gotta make ends meet. You gotta survive somehow. And although piracy may not be the most ethical way of making ends meet, I've watched enough One Piece to know that, A, you gotta make ends meet. You gotta do anything you can to survive. But that's a hard sell to try to make the claim that this person was a terrorist, of all things. Now, why this YouTuber decided to call this Yemeni teenager a terrorist is beyond me. I can't get into this person's head, but I can speculate. Because there were a lot of people, in particular, Ethan Klein, who was referring to this Yemeni teenager as a terrorist. And of course, if you happen to be a fan of Ethan Klein, you're gonna adapt some of his talking points into your own content. And that's the danger with SlopTube. It's not necessarily that it's low quality that I take issue with, and it's not necessarily that there's a lot of it that I take issue with. But I do take issue with the lack of responsibility in making a bold-faced claim like that. And a lot of times, there's no quality control. A lot of times, it's just some jackass just popping off, and they just think, okay, this is acceptable. I can upload this because it's me talking for more or around the extended period of time to retain some watch time and get some audience retention. And I hope it's clear that when I gave that previous example, it wasn't in defense of Hassan Piker. It was really to make the claim that there needs to be at least some level of responsibility when it comes to content creation, right? Like, there are times when I'm wrong about stuff, where I have made videos and I have been factually wrong about things, right? For example, there's a video that I have since deleted where I said that Richard Nixon was the reason why the California state has the Mulford Act, which is the gun control in California. But that's not true. It's not Richard Nixon who did that. It was Ronald Reagan. Both are Republicans. And yeah, sure, the point is that Republicans are the reason why gun control exists in California, despite the fact that Republicans are the loudest opponents of California's gun control. It's a weird, ironic contradiction that just screams right into your face. But in trying to make this point, I very irresponsibly, in that video that is now deleted, made the claim that it was Richard Nixon who enacted the Mulford Act, when that is absolutely bold-faced not true. And so it actually destroys my point. It makes my point that I was trying to make about Republicans being ironic and completely contradictory on their own principles. It destroyed the point that I was trying to make. And honestly, I'm ashamed of that. Now, maybe some people don't have that same value when they make content. It's really just a matter of like whether or not you give a shit that if your content has value or not, value to you. Because when somebody makes art, right, like I'm a musician and I make music that, again, it's the same approach to me making YouTube videos, music that I would want to listen to. Music that I would find very encapsulating. That's why a lot of times my songs are written in the key of D major or E major, because I like listening to songs that are in D major or E major. But at the same time, I am not ever gonna make this approach to writing music that I have to write a song that will do well algorithmically. And I think that was like one of the biggest criticisms that like punk rock musicians had against like pop artists, or at least mainstream pop artists, is that a lot of times they have like a ghostwriter, and the ghostwriter will write songs that are formulaically gonna do well in the radio. And that was like one of the biggest criticisms I've heard coming from like punks in the punk scene, because punks were always writing their own songs, you know, be it 3 chords or however complex they want to make their songs with octaves and major chords and, you know, ska patterns and metal elements and whatnot. But they always had this criticism that pop singers and pop artists always maintain a formulaic approach to their music, because they ultimately didn't care about their music that they made, or that they didn't really give a shit if they liked the songs or not. At the end of the day, to them, to the pop artists, it would be a paycheck, royalties, you're living it big. And to the punk, it would mean that that person did not truly value their own music. And so when a punk would write something that was anti-authoritarian, for instance, that punk would have value in the message that they were expressing. So that's how I feel about SlopTube. I don't see it as like a Justin Bieber, hey baby baby, with Ludacris or whatever. I just see it as people who don't value the kind of content that they're producing. And again, I hope it's been clear that while I'm, you know, criticizing SlopTube and the approach of quantity over quality, that I'm not criticizing low effort content itself. Low effort content can be awesome. This video, I don't know if it does well, but hey, this is low effort content. I'm probably gonna have this done in an hour. And I would be foolish to say that there is not an audience out there for low effort content. Sometimes there's no amount of editing, no amount of research or effort that will give a YouTuber charisma. And charisma really, at the end of the day, is why a lot of people, including myself, watch content creators. Because we're more interested in the person speaking. But then there's also instances like the Nelk brothers, who recently platformed a war criminal, Benjamin Netanyahu, who is currently engaged in overseeing an ongoing genocide in Gaza and the West Bank, and also on an imperialist conquest to destroy Lebanon, Iran, Syria, so on and so forth. And while that interview was going on, to where the Nelk brothers were pressing Benjamin Netanyahu as to whether or not he liked Burger King or McDonald's, these Israeli so-called defense force destroyed and slaughtered a kindergarten. At the same time, mind you, no pressing Benjamin Netanyahu on his war crimes, no pressing Benjamin Netanyahu on his consciousness, no pressing Benjamin Netanyahu on his fascist ideology of Zionism whatsoever. Yeah, I think as content creators, we have a responsibility, a basic responsibility. And even though we don't have any kind of like information regulation on the content that we're producing, as long as we're under the YouTube terms and services, I don't think that content creators should go without some level of accountability, some level of recognition that the content that we produce informs audiences, whether for better or for worse. Because sometimes, yeah, we are just gonna be wrong and say that Richard Nixon, of all people, enacted the Mulford Act. Hey, there are even left-wing content creators who spend more time trying to get Donald Trump just because Donald Trump looked bad in one interview, rather than to press him on the fact that he's trying to silence free speech, that he imprisoned people who are pro-Palestine, deporting and separating families, both U.S. citizens and undocumented immigrants, and especially people who are trying to get through the citizenship route legally, where ICE officers are literally waiting outside of courthouses to arrest people, even going as far as to arrest people while they're in the hospital, even going as far as to deport people to countries in which they have never had any relationship to begin with. All of these things, I've seen liberals and even leftists to some degree, engage in this Cheeto Man criticism of Donald Trump. And we need to be better than this as content creators, all of us. And that's really the point that I've got to make here. Because I hope that people come away with this, especially if you're a content creator, that this is advice that is gonna sit well with you. Also, looks like I lost. Oof.